or welcome back to Champion the Passion, a weekly pro wrestling podcast where we inspire you to champion your passions and celebrate the joy in what you love. I'm your host. My name is Victoria Daisy, and today we're going to be recapping everything that happened last night on NXT. But before we dive deeper, don't forget to leave a 5-star review if you enjoyed. Follow me at It's Victoria Daisy across all social platforms and follow Champion the Passion across all streaming platforms. But let's dive right into the action. Because for once, we're not starting off with a segment, we're starting off with a match. And I could not be more excited about what this opening match was. We had Jada Parker versus Jordynne Grace with Stephanie Vaquer, our NXT Women's Champion and former NXT Women's North American Champion. That's a whole mouthful. Sitting ringside on the commentary desk. So this match was fantastic. Okay, if you know anything about Jordynne, if you know anything about Jada, you know they are two fantastic wrestlers. So them combining, colliding, coming together for this match was going to be a blockbuster. And while I wish the match was just a little bit longer, it still left me with enough for what we will see at Stand and Deliver, which I'll talk about in a little bit. But I mean, both of these women are truly at the top of their division, and this was a top tier match, truly. Now, there were some really great spots, some really great moments, and they left no room for boredom. Now, I have to praise Jada for 1 minute because she did something that was so mature for where she's at in her career. I mean, some people in the main roster struggle to have this kind of awareness in the ring. So towards the end, actually, it was pretty much the end of the match, Jordynne Grace was going to fly out of the ring through the ropes to do like a cool like fly situation. But she ended up botching and her legs got tangled through the ropes and she ended up falling, right? And Jada, being the legend she is, she went to go check on her. But because she's supposed to hate her, and, you know, in kayfabe, she went to act like she was going to go grab her. But really, you could see, nothing, it wasn't obvious, but like, because like, if you're a wrestling fan, then you'll understand, you'll know. To the average viewer, they're not going to understand it, but you can like just sort of see that, you know, she was just checking on her because she was acting like she was going to grab her and then she kind of threw her back down. And then to cover her so that the heat would get taken away from her, she then goes to Stephanie Vaquer and slaps her, which I love, more so for the fact that she's covering for Jordynne's botch. And again, like that is something that people on the main roster even don't get. Like a lot of people do not have awareness in the ring, and for her to have that level of maturity just as an NXT superstar is so amazing and so unbelievable. So proud of her, and I love this for her. And if she's doing this so early on in her career, I mean, she has the potential to go down as one of the greatest to ever do it. I mean, some people might call me crazy, but did we I know you had your doubts about Rhea Ripley when she was in NXT. Don't play. I know you did. And look at her now. She is the top woman in WWE and one of the top superstars in all of WWE. Like, just not even just from the women as well, but just from everybody. I saw earlier today, she had an episode with Stephanie McMahon on Stephanie's Places, which is one of Stephanie's shows right now. And Stephanie broke the news to Rhea that like she is the number one superstar to have like the number one merch sales, I believe, like even over Cody, over CM Punk, over Roman Reigns. She is the top merch seller. So I absolutely love that for her. And so that's why I feel like when it comes to situations like Rhea or literally anybody, you can't doubt anybody. You just can't, especially with somebody like Jada Parker. I mean, she has it all. She is phenomenal in ring, out of the ring, on the mic, her character, everything. She's great. I mean, hell, we even saw her in the 2025 Women's Royal Rumble. I mean, they obviously see big things in her, and that's why they put her in the Rumble. So I was just so impressed by that, and props to Jada because she killed it. And then Stephanie Vaquer ended up interfering in the match, to which, because of that, it ended. And then everyone started brawling, per usual, right? But then Giulia made her grand return. We've been waiting for Giulia. We haven't seen her since she lost her title at, I believe it was the MSG show in New York actually, it probably was a month ago at this point. And I wasn't sure if she was going to get called up to the main roster. I know I spoke about that last week. And I was like, okay, what's going to happen? But then I saw that she was at an NXT live event recently. So I was like, okay, she's staying in NXT, but when is she going to strike? And it seems to be now. So she came out for the save because Jordan and Jada were attacking Stephanie. Or so we thought, because then she attacked Stephanie, and this was her official heel turn, which I love so much. I think, excuse me, when you have such an uber babyface like Stephanie Vaquer, I think what the problem they ran into, and I think what they realized is that you simply just cannot have two top stars. It's not sustainable for either. And let me rephrase that. You can have two top stars. I just mean you can't have two top star like baby faces. So you need to turn one of them heel so that it makes sense for the story, right? Because you can't have two baby faces going at each other. That defeats the whole purpose of what wrestling is: good versus evil storylines, yada yada. So if they want to run the program between Giulia and Stephanie like a full-on situation, they can now, because Giulia has officially turned heel. And some of you may be like, oh, well, how do you know that she turned heel? Well, because she turned on her best friend, Stephanie. They have said for so long that they are best friends, and now she's attacked her. And then the final, like the closing shot for that segment before we moved on was Giulia. She wiped everybody out. She's raising the title high, and she's stepping on Stephanie's face. That is the most heel thing you could ever do. And I mean, everyone was in shock. I was in shock. The crowd's in shock. Even Jordan and Jada were shocked. I mean, it was crazy. I didn't expect Giulia to come back, and I didn't expect her to be heel, but I'm here for it. And now that I'm actually thinking about it, it actually makes a lot of sense. So I'll talk about this later in my overall thoughts, but later, actually, when did it get announced? It was like a little backstage segment later on in the night that it got announced that at Stand and Deliver, Stephanie Vaquer is going to be defending her WWE NXT. Why did I say the entire name? Hello? The NXT Women's Championship in a fatal four-way match against Jada Parker, Jordynne Grace, and Giulia. Now, I'll get more into this match, and I'll talk more about it when I do my Stand and Deliver preview next week. Oh my God, next week. That's crazy. So I'll talk more about that then, but I can't even begin to think who's going to win that match. I mean, part of me is like, okay, Stephanie's just going to retain. The wild card would be Jada or Jordan, but I have a feeling Stephanie's going to retain because I think Giulia is going to want that one-on-one rematch. She did say as she was leaving the building last night that she wants the rematch. So I don't know if, I'm trying to think, did Deadline happen already? I don't remember. I need to remember the order of their shows. But whatever the next big show is after, I almost said SummerSlam, after Stand and Deliver, they could probably do that match then and give it some time to be like a huge storyline in the women's division, which I love. All right, let's move on into the next match, which was Fraxium versus Swipe Right. So this was a very fun match, okay? And for those who don't know who Swipe Right is, this might be your first time seeing them, hearing of them. They are basically a new tag team that has been wrestling on the WWE Evolve show, which is live every Wednesday at 8 p.m. Eastern on Tubi. And I'm going to be honest with you guys, I haven't been consistently watching it. It's not because I don't want to, it's just because I'm always busy on Wednesday nights. So I really need to carve out some time to catch up on some of the episodes. I know Zeta Steel had a match last week that I really want to catch up on because I love her. And Swipe Right, I have seen their most previous match and it was great. And I think they have a bright future ahead of them as well. They give me some A-Town Down Under vibes with their charismatic personalities, but they do give me Fraxium energy with their in-ring style. So I do really love them. And I can't wait to see, now that they're actually on TV now, I can't wait to see where they go from here. But obviously Fraxium is just the best tag team in NXT history, dare I say. And when I say, let me clear something up. When I say best in NXT history, for example, you could say, no, well, the Usos were, or the New Day was. And I'm like, no, the Usos and the New Day are some of the best tag teams in history, but that's because of their main roster run, correct? We're not talking about just their NXT run. So when I say best in NXT history, I mean when it comes to just their NXT run. And Fraxium has, in their NXT run, has had the best run as tag team champions. You can't convince me otherwise. And I mean, they both put on a show. I mean, there were so many cool moves, so many cool spots. I mean, stuff that I've never even seen before. It was just truly out of this world, and I loved it. In the end, of course, Fraxium won. I mean, how could they not? The next match was a stand and deliver qualifier match for that 6-woman ladder match for the NXT Women's North American Championship. And so this match was Jasmine Nix from Fatal Influence versus Sol Ruka. Now, this was a pretty good match, I can't lie. I thought both women did pretty well, and of course, Sol Ruka always brings, excuse me, those really unique moves. Is she a gymnast or a volleyball player? Whatever. She's very athletic and she can do literally anything. And so having her in a match with anybody is always great. So obviously in the end, Sol Ruka won and is now advancing to the 6-woman ladder match for the NXT Women's North American Championship at Stand and Deliver next weekend. The following match was Hank and Tank versus The Culling. I've loved that we've seen a lot more tag team matches in NXT recently because I love those. I think last night we had how many? We had 3, I believe, which is amazing. So this was a pretty good match. I can't even lie. I mean, both of these teams are powerhouses. And so getting to see them collide was awesome. And I especially love Hank and Tank because, I mean, they are crazy. And in this match, they were flying off the top rope, doing moves you would never expect them to do. And I just loved their showcase in this match. But unfortunately, it was not enough for them to win because the Culling ended up taking the W in the end. Then we finally had a segment from the new NXT North American champion, Ricky Saints. So this was, like I said, his first promo as champion. And when you have your first promo as champion, it is so important and pivotal to whatever storyline you are stepping into as champion. It sets the tone, it sets the mood and the vibe for your reign. And so, he said that he's a man of his word because when he arrived to NXT, he said that he was going to become champion, check, and he was going to be an absolute superstar, check. And he did those things. But then he decided to go into the fact that he said that he has a bitter taste in his mouth from last week because of Ethan Page. So he called out Ethan Page, but then the opposite happens. The NXT Heritage Cup champion, Lexis King, came out. Then, if you thought it absolutely couldn't get any worse, Eddie Thorpe came out. And then Wesley came out. I mean, it was a party for us all. It was absolutely insane. So Wesley said that you can't talk about the North American Championship without talking about Wesley because he made that title and some of its peak years were with him. And honestly, you can't prove that otherwise because that is the truth. When I think of the NXT North American Championship, I think of Carmelo Hayes and I think of Wesley. I think of both of them. And then Ricky said, if you want a title shot, you can have it. So now I'm thinking, okay, cool. We're going to get a match between Wesley and Ricky Saints, which I absolutely think is going to happen at some point. And Ricky Saints has yet to have a match announced yet for Stand and Deliver, which I do think he will probably next week. But I would love to see him run a feud with Wesley at some point. But before we could even move further with that, of course, Ethan Page had to attack him from behind. And then that was pretty much that. But it led into a match between Wesley and Yoshiki Inamura. Now, I was pretty surprised. This was a surprisingly good match. Lots of cool moves and spots and that I definitely wasn't expecting. And I definitely do think that a lot of us underestimate Yoshiki Inamura. He kind of came out of nowhere, but I'm loving what I'm seeing from him. But unfortunately, like earlier, it wasn't enough to get that W. Wesley ended up taking the win. And now we move on into the second Stand and Deliver qualifier match for that 6-woman ladder match at Stand and Deliver. We had Izzy Dame versus Ren Sinclair. Now, to be honest, it was an okay match. It wasn't anything that I loved. It wasn't interesting in my opinion, which really sucked. But in the end, Izzy Dame did win and is now advancing, like I said, to the 6-woman ladder match at Stand and Deliver. So that should be really interesting. I forget who's in that ladder match right now. I know Kalani's in there. Zaria's in there. Sol Ruka and Izzy Dame. So I think there's still 2 more spots left. So I'm very intrigued to see next week who else is in those qualifier matches. And then our main event, we had Darkstate versus Obafemi, Javon Evans, and Trick Williams. Now this was a fantastic match. I mean, so entertaining. This was definitely main event worthy, and I'm so happy it got the main event spot. I was so excited to see Darkstate in their first ever match, and I thought that they absolutely delivered. And towards the end, though, Trick and Oba, man. Trick and Oba started fighting. Bro, why? You couldn't keep it together for one night. I understand you have a triple threat match for the NXT Championship at Stand and Deliver, but why in the world would you fight each other? I don't get it. I don't get it, guys. But as I was actually thinking about this, it made sense. And my dad and I predicted it before even watching it, that we were like, okay, the most probable, the outcome and the outcome that makes the most sense would be for Darkstate to win. And you're probably like, wait, but your champion can't lose. Not if Javon takes the pin, which is exactly what happened with Trick and Oba fighting. It left Javon alone, and Darkstate took advantage of that and won the match. And I think you can't build a brand new faction up this high like you have with Darkstate and then have them lose in their first match, especially against 3 really hard opponents. But if you book it the right way, you can't have Oba take the pin. You can't have Trick take the pin, but it's okay if Javon takes the pin. I mean, Trick and Oba are a lot more credible than Javon is, and I think it's okay, especially with how they did it. I was going to be really mad if Darkstate lost, but I'm very happy with how it all unfolded. But then right after we went off the air, something interesting happens. A video played on the big screen of Channing Stax Lorenzo from the D'Angelo family saying that nobody can mess with the D'Angelo family. And then he challenged Darkstate to a match next week in the parking lot. We are getting Darkstate versus the D'Angelo family in a parking lot tag team match. I believe it was a tag team match. I mean, I'm pretty sure. I cannot wait for this. This better be the main event. This better be the main event. It is going to be so freaking good. I can't even wait any longer. I am so excited. But let's head into my overall thoughts. Overall, I would say it was a pretty solid NXT this week. My match of the night was definitely the main event between Darkstate, Obafemi, Trick Williams, and Javon Evans. I mean, I just felt it was so entertaining and such a great showcase for all of them. My segment of the night was everything that kind of unfolded right after the opening match between Stephanie and Giulia. I loved how Giulia made her grand return. I love that she turned heel, and I love how we are now set up for this fatal 4-way and possibly even after Stand and Deliver a potential huge storyline between Stephanie and Giulia. Overall, I'd rate the show about a 7.5 out of 10, somewhere around there. And we only have one more NXT until Stand and Deliver and WrestleMania, which is not this coming weekend, but the following. And I believe we have 10 days left. Oh my God. I mean, it's shaping up to be an absolutely great, no, we have 11 days. 10 days, something along those lines. But I cannot wait. Thank you guys so much for watching and listening to this episode of Champion the Passion. Don't forget to leave a 5-star review if you enjoyed. Follow me at It's Victoria Daisy across all social platforms, and follow Champion the Passion across all streaming platforms. Don't forget to champion your passions and celebrate the joy in what you love, and I will see you guys in the next episode. Bye!